All right. Welcome to the MedTech Wealth Advisor podcast with your host, Matthew Nelson. Matthew, good to be with you. This is your first podcast. So a lot of people understandably might not know, not only not know who you are, they might be wondering who is this guy. And so we're going to spend a little bit of time in this first podcast getting to know you and letting listeners get a sense of who you are and how you got into this industry. Because this is, an interesting place to make a living, as it were, especially in your case, because I want to get into this. And it's a pretty stock kind of question, but it's an interesting answer. How did you make the decision to get into this industry? I really want you to give people the unlikely entry of Matthew Nelson into this whole mess.
Okay. Well, I thanks, Bill. I'm glad to be here. I just wanted to tee up that my team had to convince me that this first podcast would be about me because, as we get
Oh,
going,
I know. I'm not comfortable talking about me either.
yeah,
So
no, I mean, of course, as we get going, I mean, the fun stuff for me is going to be talking about all the tax strategies and the investments and all that sort of thing and how we can help clients. But, so today I have to divulge how I got in the business and what I'm all about. So we'll give it a shot. So I think that the earliest memories I have of just money and that kind of thing. I grew up on a farm, just so everybody knows, kind of a dairy farm that um, really just means, I learned hard work early and a work ethic. And
yeah,
I think it was really good, had a lot of responsibility early, but it also means, we just didn't have a lot of money necessarily growing up. And so to buy stuff, like I had to be industrious. I had to go out and find some jobs. And I was mowing lawns, or I remember pulling my lawnmower behind my little BMX bike all around the neighborhood just to make some money. So I do that. But I think what happened was I got interested in the process of that, being an entrepreneur, and opened up the savings passport savings book and at the bank, and got interested in tracking it and so forth. And so that was really just kind of my earliest entry into it.
well, I'm curious because I did. I had a very small savings account.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I'm curious. Did your parents guide you in setting that up, or was this like all Matt?
Well, not quite all me, but I do remember opening up with probably my mother took me down there. And after that first time or so, I do remember, I mean, looking back, it's kind of funny, but I would go down to the bank at, I was probably 8 or 9, have my little passbook, need to get $5 out so I could buy some candy, and the teller thought that was pretty funny. And I had to make sure that I kept track of the numbers, right? Because you had to balance it out.
Yeah.
So that was just kind of early memories of that. Um, and then from there that you can fast forward. A big influence I think on what I'm doing for a living now is when I was young, we had a car wreck, and as a family, and there was a small settlement that I
Mm.
got about age 9, I think. And at the time, we didn't have an advisor, and I think partly just how that process works, that money just got set aside for me for college, and it wasn't
Mm.
wasn't a huge amount, but just enough to kind of help pay for college and so forth. Anyway, as I turned 18 and that was available to me, my grandfather got involved and helped us purchase some stocks. So here I am in
Mm.
college. He's showing me how to go about that process. My mom's having me make sure to track things. Probably I think by age 20, I was calling the broker and figuring out information, getting quotes for grandpa and placing trades and so forth. And so that was a lot of fun. It was pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
Um, it seemed like a lot of work at the time, but it really paid off. Because from there, I really just had an interest in, and actually, believe it or not, now I'm going to age myself, but this is back to where kind of pre-internet. I mean, their internet was there, but I ordered an online paper charting system for commodity trading. So I had these paper charts and a pencil, if you remember what that is, and
Yeah.
an actual ruler, and I would keep track of things on on paper and figure out how to trade commodities. So I was doing
That
that.
actually doesn't surprise me because I come from farming stock as well, and I remember
Yeah.
like being in my grandmother's house and listening to farm to market prices on the radio every
Mm-hmm.
morning. That was early morning radio in that house. And I don't think people quite have a deep appreciation of the connection that farmers have to commodity prices.
Right.
So in a funny, not a funny way, in an absolute way, you've got a real connection into the financial markets by your DNA, if you will.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It was extremely interesting. Anyway, fast forward, and I think that just sparked more interest. Fortunately, I landed a job at a mutual fund company called American Century Mutual Funds. And this is
Was
down in
this when you
Kansas
were in
City,
college or after
right
college?
after college. Yeah. Right
Okay.
after college. And so, had a couple, side jobs along the way before that, but I, through the right people, got into this position, realized this is where I wanted to be. I didn't even know that kind of institution existed at the time. It just wasn't, I
Mm.
hadn't been going down that road. But I got licensed there, started helping investors with, answering questions and understanding their accounts and learning about small business retirement plans. And I was basically hooked. I knew that's what I wanted to do for a living.
Yeah.
So, from there, I decided I've got to be a
I'm just
financial
kind of
advisor.
I'm gonna interrupt you because it's
Yeah.
like it begs the question. You say you got the job you didn't know ever existed before. You
Uh-huh.
started doing this job you obviously had never done before,
Mm-hmm.
and then you knew immediately you were hooked. Like, why?
It's a great question. I think the aspects of teaching were really
Mm-hmm.
important. Um, it's of course it's an exciting industry, and there's numbers and you could be reading all day just trying to keep up on top of the news and
Right.
what's in the investments, the portfolios. And so
Sure.
I was just soaking it all in, and I love talking to people and helping them understand. I think
Did
is really what
you
it amounted to.
was there like a moment, like was there an early success or your first success that made you go, Bing, that's it?
Yeah, I think it was just initially the interest at the fund family, that's this fund company. But really when I moved on to try to become an advisor, and work toward that career, that's really where things started sparking. When I was actually sitting down across from someone, I had to prepare, have plans and recommendations together, and just help them understand what they owned
Mm.
and where to go. And, I mean, looking back, I didn't know what I didn't know. I'm a 25, 26-year-old kid. And, I'm trying to advise people that are, much older than me on
Right.
what to do. And it was a tremendous experience. That definitely solidified it's what I wanted to do, but it was pretty tough starting off that way. And so I think that kind of more of a transitional point happened when I started working at an airline credit union. So here in town, we have a large credit union called Wings Financial. Used to be Northwest Airlines Credit Union.
Yep. Okay.
I was fortunate enough to land there, and at a time when the airlines were going through some tough times. And so I'm still in my early to late 20s, and a lot of people are being retired and laid off, or they are retiring and being laid off. And so I'm helping people 30, 40 years my senior with their retirement plans. I mean, this is serious business. And so I
Oh yeah.
took it very seriously. But I got to use my newly minted, CFP at the time, and I was just loving it. I mean, I just would dig into it. And
What do you mean CFP?
CFP is a certified financial planner.
Okay.
And back then, you had to study for, probably took a couple of years to do the coursework. You could do it a little faster, but then there was a 2-day test afterwards. You had to wait around for, it seemed like a couple of months to find out if you passed. It's different for the kids these days. They find out pretty much right away. It's kind of crazy, but um, that was a blast, just putting that to work and really helping people figure some things out. And I remember from that time, I still have clients from from that time today. Um, I remember specifically a client who, they came in and I said, "Hey, did you realize you are now a millionaire today?" Like they had just crossed this sort of threshold.
Ooh.
And they were so excited about it. And it was it was fun for me to see that as well. So, you know, that's that all that leads up to really what happened next, which is realizing this is definitely my long-term career. You know, I've been doing this for probably about 8 years at this point.
Okay.
And decided I've got to move to an independent firm. You know, that it was, I just didn't have the flexibility and the customization that I really wanted to have. And I was starting to come into my own of what I wanted to do. And was able to make a leap to a firm called Focus Financial, which is where I'm at today. And that's really when the fun kind of started, because it opened up my own business. You know, I own the business myself. I'm able to choose my own planning software, build portfolios. And that's when we really started rolling.
That's great. That's great. We were talking about the CFP. So before I get into your investment philosophy and curious about how you begin to develop your own investing ideas and guidance, just give folks an idea of what other designations or advanced education that you might have. What qualifications do you have to guide me, as it were, my financial path?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I mean, the CFP, like you said, that's kind of become the gold standard, if you will, for practitioners, for financial planning practitioners. And that goes very, I would say, broad, and not quite as deep, but very broad and into a lot of subjects. On top of that, though, I decided to get what's called an AIF. It's an accredited investment fiduciary. Broadly speaking, it's designed to just help you know how to act and process your business as a fiduciary. So more or less that means, Bill, you know, we've got to take the client's interest first, which would seem like that's kind of how you should operate in any business. But that's not necessarily required depending on the industry you're in.
Well, no, I have a long career in business and finance myself. And I think that people use that word fiduciary, and I think a lot of people are like, I don't know what that word means. I don't quite understand it. So why don't we just spend 1 second on that? What does it mean to you to be my fiduciary, if you will?
Sure. You know, it means that the way I answer that question to myself is I first ask, would I put my mother or brother or best friend in this investment? Would I recommend these planning techniques for someone that was that close to me? That's really where I start. But fiduciary really means that you need to be acting for the client's in the client's best interest, acting for them, not representing the company, not representing the product provider.
So not making trades in the interest of the company, but making trades in the interest of the client.
Yes, exactly. And in fact, maybe not even making trades. That's part of the challenge, I think, is that sometimes advice is thought of as being action. Advice equals action.
Yes.
When a lot of times the best advice is doing nothing. And that can be the hardest advice to give clients sometimes, when they think everything, sky's falling, do something. And the advice is, you know, this is the best thing for you, to literally sit still.
Hard advice to give, I imagine. I know it can be hard to get.
Yes.
Definitely. So, which that takes us basically at the doorstep of business and investment philosophy. So, what has your experience taught you, and what is it that you, how do you guide people? What principles, what philosophy guides you?
You know, obviously as a baseline, the fiduciary we talked about, and then from there, maybe it could feel a little bit meta, a little bit kind of touchy feely, if you will, but you're old enough to remember you know, Star Trek, I'm assuming.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, you know, and I don't want to sort of alienate, I should say, you know, any Star Wars fans. I still love Star Wars, but there's a couple of characters on Star Trek. You know, we've got Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock.
Right.
And you know, I think of it just because it's an anecdotal story, but I think of, you need both. you need Captain Kirk. It's not Captain Kirk versus Mr. Spock. It's Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock. And so, Captain Kirk really is the character that acts with passion and what their heart wants and moves toward what they need, what they think is going to be most effective, intuitively. And Mr. Spock is all logic driven, all math driven,
right?
All what's most effective. And sometimes the right answer is not the Mr. Spock answer. Sometimes the right answer is the Captain Kirk. Like, you need to do what actually is going to work, not necessarily what the math is going to tell you. So it's a little nuanced. We want to act rationally, but we also want to do what's going to be the most effective outcome for the client.
It sounds like I'm not going to put words in your mouth, so you can correct me here, but it sounds like there's a modicum of discipline that's involved.
Absolutely. Set up yourself for success. Do all of the planning, crunch all the numbers. All of that's great, but the 3-page spreadsheet that you create isn't really, that isn't really the answer. Sometimes it's what will the client be able to do? What baby step can they take to get them toward success? And sometimes that again, like I said, it's kind of like the Captain Kirk answer, if you think of it that way.
Well, I'm curious where risk comes into all of this for you, because, for example, my wife and I have different risk tolerances. She is much, much more risk averse than me in terms of the investments. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious how you talk about and deal with the subject of risk with your clients.
Right. It's a good one. A lot of times we'll use a bit of a baseball analogy with this. I try to avoid the sports analogies too much, but we don't you don't need to hit a home run every time. Like, that's not the goal of investing. Is not necessarily to make a big pile of money. Okay. In our world, the investment portfolio serves a purpose, and it serves a purpose to drive the engine of the financial plan. And so if we are sitting with, let's just say you and your wife, and looking at your situation, and you can hit doubles and singles and doubles all day and make all of your goals work, that's all we need to do. Now, that doesn't mean we have to invest so conservatively that we don't hit home runs.
Right.
But we need to start with what's really needed, and then build out some aggressiveness from there if you really need it. And I want to just make a point that make sure you're starting from the goal first versus working backwards and say, what kind of goal can I obtain? Don't invest first and then back into what will work.
I hear you on that. I hear you on that entirely. Yeah. So let's take a break from philosophy of investment to getting to you yourself. You're married, obviously. You've referenced your wife. What kind of things do y'all do when you're not working? When you're not, Matthew Nelson, guiding folks to their financial future? What do you guys do for fun?
Yeah, I'm into just about anything outdoors. So really an outdoors enthusiast. I do a lot of cycling, a lot of mountain biking. I actually, I'm on a club team called Peace Coffee Racing, and
Peace Coffee.
Peace Coffee.
Yes. I don't think of coffee as being very peaceful, but
right, amps you up. Yeah, local roaster here in town that's just fantastic. And so I've actually been on that team and supported that team for quite a number of years. But do a lot of mountain bike racing. Have for years. We also get up to the Boundary Waters, which is if you don't know, it's a big wildlife wilderness area here almost on the Canada border,
Mm.
super remote, just excellent, relaxing, no cell phone service. Love to do that with a couple of friends of mine. Um, and then my wife Tanya and I will occasionally get some travel in. Really we're kind of movie buffs, so we'll stay home and
Oh,
watch some movies and just chill out a little bit.
nice. Very nice. So I'm curious when you're doing, I am not a mountain bike enthusiast, but I have friends of mine who have been not only been mountain bike enthusiasts, but I have friends of mine who were avid triathletes. And I've got like I've had over the few years, I've had like 5 or 6 friends who were avid uh, Ironman
Mm-hmm.
competitors, and I've always marveled at their ability to stay focused and to finish those kinds of events. So I'm curious: is there like a how do you do it? Is there a mantra, a motto? Is there something that you focus on that helps you get through the peace coffee mountain bike moment, or
Right, right.
are the boundary waters, or and it probably actually apply to work as well?
You know, it's a great that's a great way to put that. I do think that my endurance sports hobby, if you will,
Yeah.
does actually support my career in that way. It is hard. There's times when I'll be out there. Some of the races are 6-7 hours long. I mean, they can be pretty extensive. Um, and it hurts. Sometimes it hurts, and you're just suffering along. And I guess what I tell myself in those moments is just that, look, pain is only temporary. Pain is only temporary. So um, you can do a lot more than you realize. And when it comes to work, there's times when it takes a little extra. When you're own your own business, when you're running the firm, you don't necessarily get to clock out at
Mm.
a nice easy 7-hour day. There's times you have to put in a little extra time. There's times when clients need you, and you have to be able to respond and put in the time. Um, so I don't know if that really answers your question. It just the ability to do hard things. I think I learned as a child on the farm.
Right.
I think I've continued to embrace that sometimes doing things that are hard um, become rewarding, and not unlike the business. Building the
Mhm.
business is hard, and it's looking back, it's been extremely rewarding.
No, I know a guy who firmly argues that we all should do hard things, that we should not avoid doing them, that there's a value, if no other value, in simply just doing the hard things.
Right. That's
So,
absolutely
yeah.
right. And of course we sit around and joke after the races, we tell our war stories, and we'll never do that again. But of course,
That
half a
2
day
weeks
later, you're
later,
like,
you
we
do.
gotta do this again. Yeah, that was the best. That was the best pain I ever felt. Right.
Yeah, no kidding. What I'm curious. We're getting near the end of this interview, but a couple of things I want to get in here. One is, are you active in the community? Are you involved in your community at all?
I am, to the extent that with the racing, it takes up a lot of time, and owning the business takes a lot of time.
Right.
So no volunteer organizations right now. I've got a few in mind, but at the moment, I'm involved in a number of what are called angel investor groups,
Mm.
and this is something that's come up in the last 5-6 years. And what that means is it means supporting startup companies here locally. Um, and I think that's been very valuable. So, contribute the time to hear their pitch and listen to their story, and sometimes money when we invest as a group. Um,
So a mentor role is a kind of the idea.
yes, the group that I'm involved in will
Yeah.
often sit in on their board. We'll usually have a board seat, and so to help these companies along. But it also just gets me involved in understanding what's going on in our community, where right now it's actually a lot of med tech related companies.
Mm.
So that's a big part of what I spend my time on.
Nice. It's a good way to spend your time when you have extra time to spend.
Right.
Let's wrap this up with a couple of questions. First one is the big question. What is your idea of success? Define it for us.
Yeah, so that's a great one. And it's one you think you have an answer for ahead of time, but I think what I've come to feel recently is this idea of it's a word called mudita. And what that means is embracing sort of an altruistic, appreciative joy of others' fortune.
Mm-hmm.
So it's different than being jealous. It's sort of the opposite of jealous. But if I can get to the mind state where I feel financially free myself, positive about my life, happy with where things are, and I can genuinely feel happy for other people as they experience success,
Yeah.
that just feels like a nice, well-rounded way of being.
Now we're going to get into this more in the next podcast, but the name of this podcast is MedTech Wealth Advisors. So it beggars the question, what is your ideal client? Give us a little bit of a teaser on that, and we can fill that out more in episode 2.
Sure. Yeah. Over the years, since I've been doing this quite a while, we've acquired clients really from all industries, small business owners and self-employed, and a lot of airline clients and so forth. But the bulk of our clients really are retired or just about to be retired.
Oh, okay.
And so that's really where our expertise lies. You mentioned that, of course, the name of the podcast is the MedTech Wealth Advisor. What we found is that we've been moving toward this niche over the last couple of years, because it aligns really well with our mission as a company. It's a very mission-driven career to be a medtech professional. And so while we have a number of clients that are not medtech related, our ideal client is coming out of the medtech profession. They're usually a mid-career, maybe late stage executive,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a medical device sales rep, a very significant role. There are some entrepreneurs that are trying to get that idea finally launched that they've had for years, and then still a lot of retirees. So that's really the target type of clients. Mostly focused on investment, and retirement and tax planning.
All right. Well, we will get into that more the next time. We're going to close this out, though, by asking you a really simple question, which is, for those who are listening to the podcast and thinking, I'd like to know a little bit more about this guy and maybe reach out to you, how would they get in touch with you, Matthew?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think you just start with our website, which is perspective6group.com, and it's got all of our contact information there. You can certainly reach out and call us directly. You'll probably get a hold of Abby or one of our other support team members. Or you can use the start here button and get on my calendar and see if there's anything we can help with, or if we're, something that would be the right fit for you.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, Matthew. We look forward to learning more about you and getting a little bit deeper into these topics over the next series of podcasts as we go along here. But for now, thanks to you. And we, of course, want to thank you, the listener, for tuning in and listening to the MedTech Wealth Advisor podcast with Matthew Nelson. If you're interested, subscribe. It's easy. There's a subscribe button right there. Just hit it, subscribe it. Then you don't have to remember, what was that? We don't have to do any of that stuff. It just gets delivered to you. You're notified. And there it is on your listening device. We'd also like to ask you very humbly to rate and share this podcast, because in doing that, you help others find it and learn about it and hopefully benefit from it. So thanks for listening today. I'm Bill Tucker on the behalf of Matthew Nelson and the MedTech Wealth Advisor podcast, reminding you to live your best day today. We'll see you next time.